Okay, so this is going through the first 11 questions of the multiple choice paper. All right, so number one, in mammals, mature red blood cells are specialised in that they lack nuclei. That's the key thing there, mitochondrial ribosomes. So if they lack nuclei, that means they lack DNA, which means they can't make proteins, okay? So we now look at the information. No chemical reactions can take place within their cytoplasm. That can't be true. They cannot produce new enzymes. Well, if they lack nuclei, and then therefore they can't make proteins, that would be true. Let's just check the other two. Materials cannot enter red blood cells. That's not true. Materials cannot exit red blood cells. That's not true. So the answer is B. Okay, question 2. With the Davison-Danieli model of membrane structure, proposed that membranes were composed of a phospholipid bilayer that lies between two layers of globular proteins, as shown in the diagram. So what evidence supported this model, as in the Davison and Danieli model? Well, an electron micrograph that showed two lines with a lighter band in between, that one did. The freeze fracture was part of the evidence which falsified the Davison-Danieli. Evidence that all membranes are identical, well, that doesn't make any difference. And the hydrophobic protein regions of the protein would be in contact with water. That doesn't make any sense. So the answer is indeed A. Okay, so question 3. A human organ is being prepared for transplant. What type of solution must it be bathed? So if you think about the first 3, so we've got hypertonic, hypotonic and pure water. All of these 3 would cause the organ to either take on or lose water, which would be a problem. And then, but D, a solution with the same osmolarity as the organ tissue, that would be something which is isotonic. So there'd be no net gain of water or solutes, and obviously that's what you want when you're transporting organs. So that is D. Okay, so question 4. Which living structure is an exception to cell theory? Well, that is A, striated muscle fibres. Let's just look at why it isn't B. Here it says a single cell alga carrying out all the functions of life. Remember, it was giant algae that were the exceptions to cell theory there. Number 5, which statement applies to cholesterol? It's hydrophobic and found on the outer. Apologies, best laid plans, my phone rang. So let's go back to question 5. Which statement applies to cholesterol? So it's hydrophobic and found on the outside of the phospholipid bilayer. Well, we know that that is not true. It's hydrophilic and found inside the phospholipid bilayer. We also know that's not true. It impacts membrane fluidity. That is true. It says transported and associated with glucose in the blood. That's not true. So the answer is C. Okay, so question 6. So this is about surface area to volume ratio. So the diagrams represent cells with the same concentration of dissolved substances in their cytoplasm. If all the cells were placed in the same hypertonic sucrose solution, which cell would show the greatest rate of change? So what we're looking for here is the cell with the greatest surface area to volume ratio. So that is basically the one with the largest sort of outside to its inside, as opposed to the largest inside with respect to its outside. So you've got to look at all of these. I mean, you could do it in terms of a calculation, but you can actually do this one visibly, because if you look at C, you can see that it's got definitively the most outside compared to its inside. Okay, question 7. So what function is performed by the part of the cell shown on the shown in the electron microscope? So the first thing you have to identify is what is being shown in the electron micrograph. It's always a good idea to look in the source to see if there's any information there. There actually isn't in this particular occasion. So we have a look at this, and this is our rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum is protein synthesis. Okay, so now that you've identified that, what you do is you go down, you see here, and the answer therefore is B, synthesis of proteins. Okay, so then question 8. What is the special property of phospholipid bilayers which explains their ability to spontaneously assemble in a lipid bilayer. So that's this idea that it's got a bit that's hydrophobic and a bit that's hydrophilic, which, if you remember, has that fantastic word amphipathic. And so the answer there is B. Question number 9. Which statement is evidence for the endosymbiotic theory? So what are the things which will tell us that this sort of the big blob cell came and engulfed the bacterial cells? So nothing about RNA, nothing about organic molecules, nothing about protein synthesis. The critical thing here is that the chloroplast contained the 70S ribosomes, because it's the 70S ribosomes which are a prokaryotic feature. So then question 10, when does DNA replication occur? So that is A, in the S phase of interphase. That's where the DNA replication occurs. That's just a fact to learn. And then 11, which process results in decreased variation? Now, this is maybe, it seems like a funny question, because normally we ask questions about what increases variation, which would be the first 3 answers. And actually what decreases variation is natural selection. Because if you think about what natural selection is doing, natural selection is trying to select for the best of all of the variants and make that one dominant. So actually natural selection decreases variation.